You, for those that don't know, are totally independent. You're doing this all by yourself these days. I noticed little DB Records there in the liner notes on Spotify.
Is that what it says there? Is that
DB Records?
I forget what I put when I uploaded it.
What do I name this?
I needed a label. It says like label name, and then I was like, oh, I won't put one. And then I hit enter, and it's like, no, it needs one. I was like, all right, DB Records, I guess.
I like it. Has a ring to it.
Yeah.
But how does a video like that, as professional, I mean, that's a great video. I love that video, and it goes so well with the song.
Thank you.
How does a video like that come about? What's the process like when you're in the driver's seat?
Well, I basically looked around for some directors that I liked. You know, I dug their work and stuff, and then reached out, and you know, it's just knocking on doors and seeing who's available and who wants to kind of jump on a project, knowing that there's not a huge funding or a huge budget behind it, and it's all kind of we're all doing it on a shoestring basically, and so you just kind of find someone who's down to collaborate, and we were really lucky to get with the director, Michael Parento, who did a great job, and we actually shot 2 videos, which another video for another single, Rewind, will come out, I think, in February. And yeah, so we just got together. I got to jump into the freezing cold of the ocean.
How cold was that?
Yeah, we were shooting that in December, so, I mean, it was ice. I mean, that's acting. That's acting, yeah. All of my acting chops were used in that video.
I'm glad you bring the acting, though, because I was curious, do you enjoy music videos because of your acting past?
You know what's weird? I don't know. Music videos they're kind of strange, because, you know, when you're on stage, you're just in it, and you're just, whatever your body does, as you're performing the song, whatever it does, you know, whatever, it just happens, and it's natural. But when you have a camera in front of you and you're just like, do I sing to the camera? And you just kind of feel dumb, you know? It's like, you kind of just have to lose yourself and just be like, all right, I trust you guys that this looks cool. But yeah, so, you know, standing there and kind of singing to the camera is always a little like, is this?
A little awkward.
Yeah, this is strange. But
well, the music is a lifelong thing for you. Of course, we first met you on the hit show.
Yeah.
But I understand, you know, you grew up in a household that played the Beach Boys, that played the Beatles, that played Queen, Rufus Wainwright, some inspirations of yours. Is that really what was soundtracking your youth?
Totally. I mean, it was so funny. I'm watching home videos of me when I was younger, and it's, you know, my grandpa's putting a guitar on me, and I can't even talk, and he's like, play the guitar, sing, you know, and I'm watching these videos, and I'm like, is that why? Is that why? Is because you're, you know, but yeah, it's all Beach Boys and Elvis and the Beatles and everything, and I just loved music, and I got to make a movie with Roger Daltrey, the lead singer of The Who, which was, as you know, I love classic rock, grew up on all that stuff. This is one of my favorite bands, so I got to work with him, and I was playing drums and really into music at the time, but I hadn't played guitar, and after working with him and picking up the guitar, and I was like, I don't want to be in the back of the band. I want to be in front. And then I started writing, and then, you know, wanted to be a shredder, and then discovering the Beatles and Bob Dylan, going, wait, I want to write the songs. And then it just kind of was a whole evolution of, you know, putting little garage bands together and all that kind of stuff. And then working on Drake and Josh, and had the opportunity to write all the music for the show, and I wrote the theme song, and that helped catapult the music a bit. And let me, it really helped me creatively, because as I was acting on the show, I was also able to, you know, exercise my music muscle, which I loved so much, you know.
So at what point do you discover Brian Setzer? Because I understand, I mean, you made a whole record with Brian, but he's your favorite guitarist, from what I understand.
Yeah, I got him he's tattooed on my back.
Oh, my God.
I was probably, like, I think I was about 12 years old, and there was a commercial for 80s hair bands or whatever, you know, those compilation albums.
Yeah.
And everyone just looks like they're from the 80s, and I'm like, okay, whatever. But then I saw the Stray Cats video for Rock This Town popped up for a second, and there were these cool guys with tattoos and pompadours, and they looked like they were from the 50s. And I ran into the living room, I'm like, Dad, have you ever heard this band, the Stray Cats? And he's like, yeah, that rockabilly band from the 80s. I'm like, no, I need to go to the record store right now and find out who these guys are. And then I bought the first album of theirs and put it on, and the rest was like, I just need to be Brian. I'm like, I want to play like him, I want to dress like him, I want to look like him and everything. And then fast forward to years later of me being a crazy fan and going to every show and figuring out how to get backstage and figuring out how to get him to sign this and meet him this way, to where eventually when he started seeing me backstage, he knew me as like that fan that always figures out how to get backstage. Like, oh, hey, Drake. And as the years went on, that was like, you know, I started doing that when I was about 13, before I was, you know, on Drake and Josh. And then as the years went on, he had a daughter. She started watching Drake and Josh. Now when I start showing up, he's like, oh, hey, he doesn't know me as the crazy fan. He knows me as, oh, my daughter digs that show. And then I started to talk to him about maybe working on a record together. And And surprisingly, because he's never worked on any other record except for I think Glenn Campbell's, because he loves Glenn Campbell, and he worked on my record, and we got to play together and work together, and he played on the album and produced it and everything. It was a dream come true. I mean, it was like getting to work with, your idol.
Is there anybody in the world of acting that you looked up to the same way that you looked up to Brian?
Yeah, but I would probably say they're gone, I'd say like James, I probably James Dean, as far as actors. Like, he kind of gets the raw end of the deal sometimes. People just go, oh, he was only famous because he's a pretty boy, or only famous because he, died early, and it's a legend, that folklore behind it. But man, if you watch his performances in Giant and East of Eden, it's like he's running circles around these guys, and he's doing things that actors now are, that whole method. Marlon Brando, James Dean, those cats invented Daniel Day-Lewis. Those guys invented Dustin Hoffman. So to watch those performances, those are kind of like, man, I wish I could have been around to just be like, go to dinner with James Dean or something,
Yeah. I mean, you talk about James Dean, you drop that name, you talk about the sort of 50s, 60s vibe of Brian Setzer. What do you love so much about that era? Because I know it's your favorite.
I think in a nutshell, it's just style, man. It's everyone cared about style. The guys cared, the girls cared, the cars, you see cars going down the street right now, they look like half-used bars of soap. Back in the day, they were these pieces of works of art, with the fins and these beautiful colors. And, just a 57 Chevy back in the day was just that was a car your aunt had or your mom drove. It wasn't cool like it is now, but still, the style of it had the fins and the two tones and all the everything that goes into those cars, and the clothing and the hair and the music and the movies. Everything about that era is just so, the 50s and the 60s. It's just so cool.
Yeah,
I think cool. That's the word for that era. It's just cool, man.
Well, and I think you touched on an attention to detail in art, whether it be a motor vehicle or a song or music or the composition of music from back in that era.
Yeah, I think attention to detail is super important. That's why I've always been obsessed with Disneyland. I go to people, why are you so into Disneyland? Don't you want to go to these other amusement parks with the big? I'm like, yeah, but that's just metal and cement. You go to Disneyland, look at the attention to detail. Down to every little, piece of paint is just like, there's a purpose behind it. There's a reason they use that color. There's a reason they use this. There's a reason that looks like that, and down to every little, to the bricks and on the floor.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this lifelong love of music, I guess, took a detour, if you will, because you happen to find yourself on a legendary hit show, Drake and Josh, of course. You, though, are different, from what I understand, than a lot of actors. Because a lot of actors that have early success, I don't want to say they're resented, but maybe they don't revisit it. You love watching the show, I understand.
I love it.
You go back and...
I love it. It's like High School Reunion. And even if you go on my YouTube channel, we did these things called Where's Walter? Walter was the dad on Drake and Josh. And me and Jonathan, who plays Walter, we're sitting down at lunch one day, and we were thinking of just some funny YouTube things to do. And he's like, what if Walter went crazy and he becomes some homeless guy, and we don't know why he ran away? It's just something happened. He just went nuts. I'm like, that's a great idea. And I'm like, you know what? I just bought all this camera equipment. Let's just go shoot something real quick. So we went and had some fun, and it kind of snowballed into this whole thing where we got Yvette, who played Helen, to come back, and Nancy, who played Audrey, my mom, and the great Doheny. We had all these characters coming back and doing these little snippets from the show, and it's like a high school reunion. Everybody was we were all such great friends, and everybody got along so well on that show that any inkling of us being able to get back together, we all jump at, So
yeah.
It's just now you just got to convince Josh.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, you talk about Josh. You guys have this, I called the show legendary, and it is.
Yeah.
It lives on in the hearts of anybody who grew up in that time period. And you guys have a legendary chemistry, I think is fair to say.
Thank you.
Have you been able to attain that kind of chemistry with anybody in the world of music?
Honestly, I don't think I've been able to attain that type of chemistry with anyone else in the world ever.
Really?
Even like a girlfriend, you know what I mean? Because he and I have such a connection when it's weird, man. Because we've been together since we were kids. I remember when we were 11, 12 years old, we were on the Amanda Show, and I would go, I'd go hang out at his house, and we'd have sleepovers, and we'd sit up we'd sit up at night and I'd go, okay, what's our show going to be about? And we would come up with these ideas and everything, and we not even thinking we would ever have a show, really. Never. This was years before Drake and Josh. This was just us fantasizing. And then when we worked together on set, I mean, I don't have to talk to him. I don't have to, hey, Josh, can we just look at each other? It's like, no, I know. Oh, I know. It's weird. Yeah. When we went to do Grandfathered, his show that he did with John Stamos on Fox, I did a guest appearance, and after we did it, he pulled me aside and said, man, I was nervous because we haven't worked together for about almost 10 years now, haven't done a scene together. And man, we fell right back into it, huh? I'm like, dude, I told you, man. I'm like, there's something there between us that, it's once in a lifetime in this business. I mean, it's a Martin and Lewis. It's an Abbott and Costello. It's a Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder ain't gonna go find another Richard Pryor. It's just I'm not gonna go find another Josh. It's that we are what we are, and it's just something that happened, and it was really rad.
It's got to be one of the longest friendships you have, just not even in the business, but in your life. And there's
absolutely. I mean, I've known the guy for 20 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And there's been so many ups and downs, if you will, and probably most.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're like real brothers. I mean, there's been times on set where, we don't want to talk to each other unless it's the dialogue, And then there's other times where, hey, what are you doing after work? After we've done a 16-hour day together? Oh, I don't know, going to your house and playing video games and hanging out, And so there's sometimes, and then I end up crashing at his place and wake up and I'm like, oh, got to get to work. And then we're like literally inseparable. You know what I mean? So it's like we're real brothers. Sometimes you want to, throw your brother against the wall, and sometimes you want to grab him and be like, you're the coolest dude in the world and you're my best friend.
Totally.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where between or throughout the highs and lows that you thought that maybe this friendship was done?
No, I mean, I don't know about done. I mean, there's obviously been some times where I've, and I'm sure from him as well, because that's just like a 20-year relationship is going to have those times where you're like, man, is this ever going to, is this what seals the breakup? But not with me. No, it's just, we have our tiffs and stuff, but I love that guy so much, and we're so close, and, like I said, having that type of relationship, especially in Hollywood, in this business, to have somebody that you can call your friend and that you know intimately and closely is like, I mean, that's priceless.
Yeah.
Priceless.
Do you have a favorite memory with him and the show that kind of jumps out to you?
Oh, man.
So tough to ask.
I mean, especially because of just how many hours and hours we'd spent together. But I would say the most fun that I would have with Josh is when we would do our late night overnights. We would get to set at about, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we would shoot until 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning the next day. We would do almost a 24-hour day. And so, probably until about 3, 4 o'clock. So until the sun comes up, because once the sun comes up, we have to stop shooting. So we would just get delirious. We would be so tired and exhausted. And Josh, if you think that kid's funny when he's normal, I mean, get him sleep deprived. Get him sleep deprived and on a 12-hour day of work, and that kid is just like, I mean, the jokes are nonstop. His puns, it's literally, he kept everyone awake on that set. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, people are falling asleep, and Josh is like, hey, and then the whole crew is laughing and rolling and awake again. So I think our overnights were the funnest because he would just get hilarious and delirious and stuff. So.
Now, I know in every single interview you do, they talk about a reunion. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious to ask you, what would a reunion look like in your eyes? Like, if you were to write that story, what story would you tell if there was a proper reunion?
The cool thing about us is I think we could be anything. I mean, I would it'd be great to bring the characters back, and, where are Drake Parker and Josh Nichols now, and did Drake, is Drake still living at home in the same room, and Josh go off to New York and become a big manager, get some cool job and or did he go to college, whatever? And is Drake still slacking off at home, living with his parents? I mean, that'd be fun. But I think it'd be cool to kind of take our relationship and do something completely different, and maybe make like how Abbott and Costello or Martin and Lewis did, they go, or Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, Road to Cairo, Road to this, Road to that, and different, we could do an Old School, and we could do a Pineapple Express, and we could do a whatever these buddy comedies are, Wedding Crashers kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just think any opportunity to work with him, in any capacity, I think would be cool.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a reunion in itself. You know?
Oh yeah, and the fans would go crazy. Let's talk about this EP right here. Honest came out, I guess last June.
Yeah, like June or
June,
July.
July
or
was like a
something.
summer. It was
I don't
very
know. They
summer
said,
vibe to this.
Yeah. The song "Runaway." It's like brings me back to my old days. I grew up in Newport Beach on the beach, so it definitely has those vibes.
And
Top
it's oh for sure.
Yeah.
It's a very vulnerable record too. You know, we were talking backstage about maybe doing some sort of like stripped down version of it because it lends itself so nicely, so greatly to an acoustic setup. I'm curious though, you know, music can be such a great platform to express vulnerability, right, and kind of bare your soul. But acting can too, in a way. And I'm just curious how that compares.
Well, that's a question I get asked all the time. Is, you know, what do you like more, acting or making music? And you know, acting, yes, can be vulnerable, and you can be playing this character that someone's written for you and told you how to play it and told you what they want from it, and you are hoping you give a performance that guy wants, or that guy saw when he was writing this piece, you know. But when you are making a record or you're doing your own, you're that guy that wrote the piece. So you know, so that could be a lot more rewarding, but it could also be a lot more daunting because you're going, like you said, you know, you're more vulnerable. You're going, wait a minute, if what I'm saying in this performance or this monologue doesn't come across, I can always just blame the writer. I can be like, oh, that's the writing, you know. But if this doesn't come across, I'm the writer, and it's my thoughts and my soul and my journal base. It's like basically opening up my diary, my journal, and letting everybody read, you know. And so yeah, so I think writing music and then performing it on stage, and I mean, you're much more. I think it's much more on your shoulders than being on a sitcom with an ensemble cast, and you're doing other jokes, and you get multiple takes, and you get all this kind of stuff. But you know, when you're live on stage and you have an audience looking at you and they know the songs, and you better perform them the way they want to hear them and give a good performance and feed off of them, and that's just much more, at least rewarding for me. And I like connecting with people and stuff like that. You don't really get that on a set, you know. You don't get to get the instant reaction. I mean, maybe when you're working on a sitcom, you know, doing a live sitcom or something. But when you're doing a movie and you're on a location and you don't have that connection with your fans that you get when you're doing a live show.
Yeah. You talk about stepping into somebody else's words or somebody else's work as an actor and kind of, you know, having that kind of bail out like, hey, it's their stuff. You did something, though, interesting where with Brian, we talked about the record before, but that was I think the entire album was cover songs, right? Where you were stepping
I think I wrote about 2 or 3 songs on that record.
Okay, predominantly
but
covers.
Predominantly covers, yeah.
So what's that experience like as a songwriter? Because it's got to be kind of similar to acting, right? Where you're adapting somebody else's work, you're stepping in the shoes of another writer.
Yeah, it was different. I mean, I love doing covers, and we do a lot of covers live and stuff, so... but yeah, I mean, it was daunting, you know, especially because I covered Brian's songs on the record. You know, one of the cool things, very nerve-wracking. We were working on, I mean, obviously he only said this to be kind because it's obviously not true, but it was very nice of him to say. We couldn't get the guitar solo on the cover that I did of his song. We couldn't get the guitar solo right, and Brian called up the studio and said, "Hey man, how's the recording going?" I said, "Brian, it's going great, but this guitar solo." You know, because obviously I grew up with yours, and I love yours, and it's just none of these guitar players are bringing in can make it sound right. He's like, "Well, send the tracks over to me. I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll lay something down on it." He sends it back, and of course it's just butter. I mean, it's just perfect. It's just amazing. And he calls me up. He's like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know, I think you did that song better than I did." I'm like, dude, that's very. I mean, obviously not, but I'm like, that's very nice of you to say. So it was cool to kind of get the attaboy from the person you're covering, you know.
Gosh.
So, but it's scary, you know, doing these songs that you love and hoping that people are gonna react to them or you know not be like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. I want to talk about how honest. Sonic departure, I think, is fair to say from your previous work. You know,
totally,
definitely more, I guess, dance-centric, pop focus, if you will. You're out on tour right now.
Yep.
You're actively, I think, 6 or 7 dates in. You're going to be playing a date here in Brooklyn and also New Jersey, not too far away. Is there a departure in the live performance too? Can we expect anything new from what you're doing
Well,
live?
the tour I'm doing right now is just like these cool pop-ups and stripped down acoustic. So a lot of these songs I'm actually, if you come see the live show right now, I'm just stripping them down their acoustics. So you get to hear a totally different version of them, which a lot of the fans are reacting to nicely. But yeah, that's the interesting thing. When I did the Rockabilly record, I was touring and basically doing other people's music. And as an artist, I was just feeling deprived. So when I got into the studio and started writing again, it was basically like I got to start from scratch, because I didn't have to sound like my last record. I didn't have, fans weren't going to be like, wait, why didn't, because the Rockabilly record was sort of a one-off, that was for me. That was like my little, all right, I got to do that, cool. And so when I got into Do Honest, it was a clean slate. I didn't have anything I had to sound like. My last album didn't come, 2010, 2006 were the last records I released, so there's so much time that I can basically just start new. And I started writing, and it just started pouring out. And a buddy of mine, Steven Reza, who I started working on these songs with, once we started coming up with all these different sounds and everything, it just took a life of its own. We worked on this one song, the first song we did for this album, called Leaves, and that was sort of the catalyst for the sound of the whole record.
Carried you through.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Well, Drake, you sold out the Build Studios here. We've got a bunch of your fans here
nice.
in the studio today, and we're going to take some questions. Front row, I think we're going to kick things off.
Sweet.
Hi, Drake.
What's up?
Just wanted to say that Drake and Josh is like my whole childhood.
Awesome,
Hug me,
thank you.
brother.
Yeah, hug me, brother.
And so my question for you is, what are you thinking about doing next? Are you thinking about making an album, like another album, and or are you thinking about going back into the acting world? Like, what's next?
Well, I keep forgetting that I just did this, but we just premiered a movie called Cover Versions at the Palm Springs Film Festival. Katie Cassidy, Jerry Traynor, who played Crazy Steve from Drake and Josh, is in it. Debbie Ryan. So we got a really, really great cast, and it's a cool movie about a rock and roll band who goes to play Coachella, but some crazy drug-fueled murder and nuttiness happens. So it's kind of a mystery suspense thriller movie. And I think that comes out April, around the time of Coachella. So that comes out April, and then I'm in the studio right now working on the next EP, which I don't know, like I said, since we're doing it independent, I don't know if I'm going to do another EP and it's going to turn into a full-length album, or if I do an EP and then I end up doing an album. Right now, what I'm really focused on is just putting music out and playing live. I just want to get get out on the road and just play music and record and write, because for the past 6 years, since It's Only Time, since I put that record out, and I just have not been putting music out and touring, and these shows have just been the best. And being able to get out and do stuff like this is the best. So as much as I can stay on the road and make music, that's. And if movies come out around that, then great.
All the better.
Thank you.
Second question.
What would be your favorite song to play live?
What's my favorite song to play live? Yeah. Well, my favorite songs to play live usually are covers, because it's like I love to play Blackbird by the Beatles. But I would say, as far as my songs, right now I really like the acoustic version of Honest. Playing the acoustic version of Honest is fun, because the fans always get a kick out of kind of having a different take on the song, and they're always, after the shows, they're like, where do I get that version? Where do I get that version? I'm like, did you record it on your phone? Because I don't know.
You got to put that on a recorded version.
I know.
I mean,
want
Honest
to.
is like, I feel like that's a song that's built for
I know.
acoustic.
I think we may do a full-on acoustic version of that EP in the future, but because when we strip down the songs, even Runaway, when we do that song acoustic, it just, the one that you said has the summer vibes. I mean, it sounds like Jason Mraz, it totally it sounds like we should be in Hawaii or something. It's great.
Feel good tunes, man. We got time for 2 more, so where's the next one going to come from?
Hi.
That's an awesome shirt, by the way.
Thanks.
I want that.
I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
And my question for you is, when you shot the Honest music video, what was your favorite on-set moment or memory?
My favorite on-set moment. Oh, okay. So there was so when she's beating me up, when she's hitting me and stuff. Okay, so that's my friend Sophia, and we're actually friends. So it wasn't like I just cast an actress and she's like, oh, did that hurt? Am I going too much? Like, she's a friend of mine, so she didn't care, And there's some crew members on the set watching it happen, and one take she went all out. I mean, I was blocking her. I'm like, whoa, okay, enough. This is not acting anymore. Enough. And the whole crew just started busting up laughing, and they were filming it on their phones, so we're all watching it back. And you know, I'm in it, and I'm like, you know, and then all of a sudden there's a point where I'm like, okay, like whoa, all right, like, you know, and she's just so in it, throwing her arms and everything. So that was probably the funniest moment when she just couldn't, when she was just like, went all out, yeah.
Yeah. Danger to set it.
Yeah, it was very, yeah.
The final question of the day right here.
Hey Drake,
Hey, what's
so 10-year-old me is like flipping out right now.
Nice.
So it's like 2007. So It's Only Time was one of my favorite records from my childhood.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
So I remember there was like a group of songs near the end. I think it was like Break Me Down, Rusted Silhouette, and
Falling for You.
Falling for You. I know you're a big fan of the Beatles, and that I was listening to it a few days ago.
Yeah.
And it kind of sounded similar to like the Golden Slumbers medley. How
Yeah.
everything went together. Was that intentional?
Totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, dude.
to
So
hear.
we were working on. I had Fallen for You, and I had Break Me Down, and I had Rusted Silhouette. They were all unfinished songs, but I had the core of them. You know, I had the chorus, I had verses. I didn't have a bridge for Fallen for You. I didn't have a certain thing for this song. And in the studio, when I was working with Backhouse Mike, we were going through the songs, and it just hit me. I was like, look, if we can't figure out, I just sat down at the piano. I was like, listen to this. What if this goes together? And Mike was like, oh yeah. And Mike, being the musical genius he is, you know, we just strung them together. And we were like, oh, it's just one long song. Let's do it like the B-side of Abbey Road. We'll do it like Golden Slumbers and To Me and Mr. Mustard and Paul and Theme Pam and all of that. And it just worked out. And it was like, oh, man, this is so cool. So that's why. It was sort of because we couldn't finish the songs, and then it was also, we got inspired by the B-side of Abbey Road going, oh, well, let's just do what Paul did when he couldn't finish the songs and just string them all together, make one long song. And then when we were playing live, if you watch any of the live versions of that, later, like maybe like 2008 era, we added another part because when we were on the back of the bus and we were rehearsing the song, we ended up writing another part, and I'm like, oh, this is a whole other part of the song. So if you watch those, there's actually a fourth part to that whole thing, and we're sitting there going, oh, why couldn't we written this before and put it on the record and recorded it? But so it's that little, if you dig that string of songs, you got to check the live version out because we have a whole fourth part that's not on the record, and it's sick harmonies. It's like full 5-6-part harmonies. Yeah, 6-part harmony, and it's great melody. So you'll dig it if you like that. Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's an awesome. Thanks for digging that too. That's cool.
They're great questions today.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, Drake, thanks so much. We're out of time, unfortunately. But again, the Honest EP is out and available everywhere. To catch Drake out on tour, you can check out dates across your social media at Drake Bell.
Yeah, at Drake Bell on everything: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all whatever.
Cool. You're gonna be busy this spring. It sounds like you're doing shows through March or
through April.
Through April
so far,
yeah.
and then but we're gonna continue on. We're nonstop right now. So
Yeah, awesome. Well,
Full
thanks for
fledged
stopping by.
assault, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.